We're all here to support your individual journey, right, to get healthy and well. And I think it's important to think about that in that order. You know, Black men are the most at-risk demographic in this country. I know we're going to hear a lot about this from our speakers, right? But the average life expectancy of a Black male in this country is 61 years. The average life expectancy overall is about 76, 77 years, depending on what community you're in. Here in Detroit in particular, we do a lot of work looking at maps all the time. And we know there are pockets across the city where people are dying 5 to 15 years younger than the state average. That's not because of violence, that's not because of cancer, it's because of heart disease. And heart disease is something that we can control. We can control it by getting our numbers checked, eating right, as we're going to hear about, Collin, changing your whole diet and making sure you take care of your weight. And we're going to hear from Dr. Newby about the importance of heart health, and Dr. Neighbors about his own personal journey through this and what he's learned over, I won't say many years because I'm not going to date you over there, but a couple of years doing this business and studying all of this and studying human behavior, right? Because at the end of the day, again, it doesn't start if you don't take the action. So I'm just delighted to have been here and been able to support this. And thank you so much, Collin, for inviting me and Wayne Health and Wayne State to be here. And thank you to Hartford Baptist for inviting us into your home to be part of this. Thank you guys very much.
So good morning, everybody. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. So my name is Keith Newby. I'm a cardiologist. I practice out of Norfolk, Virginia. So I've traveled a bit to be here because of how important this topic is. And I wanted to start off just by saying welcome this morning, and I appreciate you inviting and having me and sitting out to listen. I know it's tough on a Saturday morning. I'm sure you'd rather be somewhere else, but I'm glad you chose to be here. So one of the things that I think of, you put up, I'm not sure if my slide can go back up, but I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple things. First thing is, we talk about wellness, you know, and I've kind of learned I don't use the word health that much. I use wellness more, so health sometimes can turn people off and want to hear things. And it's just something, a stigma that Dr. Neighbors may touch on, but, you know, it's hard to hear about health. You know, a lot of people think that's a bad thing, but it can be a very good thing depending on how you look at it. So why is wellness important? When you think about it, when you wake up in the morning, depending on how you feel, dictates how the day is going to go for you. If you feel very good about the day, I mean, you woke up, you had a good night's sleep, and you know everything was good. You know, you get up and you feel good the next day, and how you spend that day, the things you want to accomplish will likely be enhanced based on how well you feel. So it's always important for that wellness aspect, but that's why this is important. Now, you know, mentioned about life expectancy, and there is a vast difference between African American, white, Asian, and American Indian. And why is that? We'll get into that in a minute, but a lot of that's based on lifestyle. And I want to make sure we emphasize that as well. But that readiness to function at your best is what we want to make sure we touch on. Now, conditions that affect men most. You know, heart disease is still the #1 killer in this country, by far. Even when COVID was at its peak, heart disease still is #1. You know, I mean, one thing I can say, I will never be out of a job. You know, and and that's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is to make sure, I'd rather you put me out of work. You know, I can find something else to do. I went to school forever. I can figure that out. But having you be healthy, have that life that you can prevent seeing me in the emergency room with a heart attack. You know, a lot of people don't realize a lot of people die from heart attacks. They don't even get a chance to get to the hospital. So you want to really think about what are the things that's going to impact our men more. That's one of the things is heart disease, depression, hypertension, prostate cancer, cancers in general, lung cancers, colon cancers, diabetes, and of course, for most men, the dreaded erectile dysfunction. You know, and we can say that, but listen, I got many people that will not take blood pressure medications because they're worried about that. I tell them, I said, listen, if you're dead, you can't do anything anyway. I mean, just keeping that part real. You know, it's the one thing that you want to always make sure that you prioritize things in the right way. Cancer rates, you know, where we talk about what are the things that are important as it relates to cancer rates. Well, prostate cancer, especially in African American men, is still #1 cancer. And I tell you, one of the things that really breaks my heart over the years. Now, I'm not a cancer doc, but of course, I have to deal with a lot of this because there's a lot of overlap in all our fields. But when you have somebody who ignores the signs and they think it's going to go away, that's the part that, and I'll get into this in a minute, but what you'll find when you look at cancer rates. Now, of course, for prostate cancer, there is a higher incidence of that in black men, no question about that. But when you look at cancer overall, there's not a lot of difference between African American and Caucasian as relates to cancer rates. But you'll find mortality rates, which is death rates, are higher in African American population. Why? Because we don't want to go to the doctor. We don't want to get checked out. We will avoid these things, and that's where we can make one of the biggest impacts is that life expectancy part. So when you talk about the highlights of the cancers, prostate's number one, colon's number two, colon and lung, kidney, pancreas, liver, esophagus, in that order. And when you see that, if all it's about is early detection, you'd be surprised how that can impact on that. Now, I want to spend a little bit of time about heart disease, because that's my area. That's what I've been doing for 20 plus years, is heart disease. Why is that important? Because as we talked about earlier, that's your number one killer of everybody, bar none. But you'll find that it will impact African American men more. Why? Because of causes of heart disease. Let me talk a little bit about what heart disease is. When people say that, a lot of people will say to me, ask me this question, do I have heart disease? First question I always, when they say that, I say, well, do you know what heart disease is? And of course, most people don't, because that's a very broad term. When I say heart disease, that'd be like if I say the word car. There's several types of cars, there's Mercedes, there's Jaguars, for those who are a little bit too young for this, Pintos, Gremlins, there's a host of different cars, and they all have different impacts based on the style and make and model. So look at heart disease as the same way. Heart disease, if you look at definition, that means anything that affects the heart or the great vessels. So the great vessels are your big aorta that comes out of the heart. That's your main artery that comes out, because really the heart is just a pump that's pumping blood, oxygenated blood to different areas to allow you to do what you want to do every day. If you're trying to walk, if you're trying to run, sitting, whatever the case may be, your heart has to pump a certain amount of blood out to allow that to happen. And the arteries that have to transmit that blood to all these different places is what is defined as heart disease. So if you have a stroke, that means you have something that happened to the artery in the brain, either a clot or embolus or some kind of whatever that disrupts blood flow. That's a form of heart disease. If you have a heart attack, that is a form of heart disease. If you have a peripheral vascular disease, which we want to just touch on it for a minute, that's blockage in the arteries in the legs. That is a form of heart disease. Why? Because it attaches to the heart. So the heart is that central organ that has to transmit all this blood everywhere. So if it gets affected, it can impact on your life. So when you talk about that, and I like to categorize that 4 different categories when I look at heart, just to keep things simple for the purpose of this. And when I'm teaching patients, I love analogies to give them things that they can relate to. So I look at heart, if you look at it like a house, in your house you have your floors, your ceilings, you have walls, you have rooms, you have doors that go from room to room, you have plumbing, you have electrical circuits. Well, the heart's the same way. Each room in your heart is called a chamber. And each door that leads from one chamber to the next is called a heart valve. So they have to open and close well. You have to have plumbing, which are like your coronary arteries. Those are the things that transmit oxygenated blood to the heart itself. The heart has to pump blood out everywhere else, but it needs its own food supply, and it gets it through the coronary arteries. Then you have structural problems. Think about if you have, if your house foundation is faulty, it may not hold well over time. Well, if you have heart failure, that's like a problem with the structure of the heart, where it's not pumping adequate amounts of blood out to allow you to do what you want to do. So, and the thing that I want to really focus on here is what are the causes of heart disease. That's where our focus is, because that's the part we can really alter. If you think about what are the things that can cause heart problems: hypertension, diabetes, high cholesterol levels, people that smoke, people who are markedly overweight, and people that don't do much all day. If your main exercise is pushing a remote control button, that's the kind of thing that you will find those individuals are going to be at higher risk. And that's the thing you need to understand is these illnesses, these chronic conditions, somebody has hypertension, that is a chronic condition. That means your blood pressure is elevated. So, understanding what is a normal blood pressure. And one of the things that I'm going to ask this of the audience, what is a normal blood pressure? Give me a number. Okay, I heard 120 over 70. Any other? Okay, I heard 125 over 80. Any other numbers before I answer that question? Okay. And this is not, and this again, interaction. This is not a trick question. But a normal blood pressure is less than 120 over 80. Less than. So that means 119 is normal. If your blood pressure, your top number is 120, that's an elevated blood pressure. And I know a lot of you guys have probably looked at me like I'm on drugs up here, but I'm not. That is a normal blood pressure, less than 120 over 80. Stage 1 hypertension is if your top number is 130 to 139, or your bottom number is between 80 and 89. That is considered either one. So if you're 120 over 84, that's stage 1 hypertension. If you're 134 over 70, that's stage 1 hypertension. Stage 2 hypertension is if your top number is 140 or greater, or your bottom number is 90 or greater. Now, why are these terms relevant? Because look at what it can cause. Hypertension can cause heart attacks, can cause strokes, it can cause heart failure, and it can cause kidney failure, amongst other things. So when we talk about trying to get somebody's pressure down, I'll have somebody that will come to see me in my office, and they'll say, my pressure is one. Like if I check it, I say, your pressure is high. And it'll be like 160 over 100. Oh, that's good for me. I mean, and I'm looking at them like, no, that's not good for anybody. Where you get that from? It used to be 200 over 120. I'm like, well, don't be proud of that. That's not, that's not a number you want. You want a number within a normal range. And they'll say, well, I feel lousy when my pressure is that low. I'm like, but that's not low, that's normal. I said, your body's been fighting this because you had high pressure for so long. Your body's used to being high now. I said, but that's not going to help you lead that best life. You want to get those numbers down. Now, a lot of times I'll tell people we're going to bring it down slowly, but we need to get it down. If your blood pressure is 130, your potential stroke risk is over 35% at 130. When I hear stroke alert in the hospital, and you look at these numbers, they're typically between 130 and 150, typically, the top number of blood pressure. So I tell people all the time, I said, listen, make sure that you are getting the proper information when you're going out looking at any of these types of illnesses or conditions. Don't listen to Joe Blow down the street with no medical degree. This is all not to do anything but just give the dose of reality for today. How, people perceive aspects of medicine. And people will oftentimes say to me, I know my body, so I don't want to do certain things. I'm like, yeah, you know your body, but I know medicine, which is different. So you don't act like you know more than what you know. I hear you, and I respect how you feel, but you don't have the background, the understanding of how these conditions can affect you. And when you see somebody die from this stuff early, I mean, that takes you to a different place. I mean, I've seen more folks die over lack of knowledge or lack of understanding. And with that, and for me, I mean, I'm a deacon in my church, so I have a Christian belief that drives a lot of what I do and what I say. And when you see people die in front of you, that's hard to deal with, and that's hard for anybody to deal with. So I really encourage you to make sure that you do not only just learn about yourself, but your family members. When you have your Thanksgiving dinner, make sure you look at what you're eating, because you put that bacon, grease, and fat back in everything, then you'll be seeing people like me. But I'm saying all that to say the realities are when you're around the Thanksgiving or Christmas table, make sure you're talking to each other. Find out what your family's health condition is like. Because again, that may impact you. If you find out that you had 2-3 family members have had breast cancer before they were 30, but we don't talk about that in our families as much. So then, that way may impact your daughter or your cousin or whomever. So you want to make sure you understand that family history. That's going to be extremely important. So, I say all that to say that things that we do, smoking, we have now in our community, everybody wants to smoke weed. I mean, when that became legal a couple of years ago, I don't think I walked through my hospital parking lot now one time. I don't care if it was 6 in the morning or midnight. I didn't smell some weed going on. And I'm telling them, I said, listen, guys, everybody said, well, this is not cigarettes. And I'm like, yeah, but you ain't seen the data. I say 42% risk of stroke with people that smoke marijuana on a daily basis. 42% risk. So there's no such thing as a benign anything foreign that you're putting in your body. So you want to always be careful. I mean, I have people that tell me when we were doing COVID vaccines, I don't know what's in the COVID shot. I don't want to take it. I'm like, you don't know what's in that weed you're smoking either, but you do that. I mean, and again, these are just things I'm bringing up as realities, what we have to deal with in a health profession. People do what they want to do, and they believe what they want to believe. But our job, as I see as health care professionals, is to give you the tools you need to make sure you live that best life. And if we don't do that, then we're not doing our job very well. So again, when you think about risk factors, make sure you understand your health condition. If, really, you got to go to the doctor to do that. So make sure if you do have hypertension, if you are diabetic, don't take those diseases lightly because they could end up causing you some major problems in the future. And I see diabetics, like amputations, strokes, heart attacks, kidney failure, and at least in my area in Norfolk, Virginia, you can't go into a dialysis center anywhere in my area and look and see who's in there. 99% African American, guaranteed 99%. I think in my practice I may have 2 white patients who have kidney failure, but 99% are African American. And why? Because of hypertension and diabetes that's left untreated. Because again, if we feel fine, we think we are fine. And that leads to these outcomes that I hate to see continue to happen. So I'm going to really ask that you really take some of these things to heart and make sure you understand. If you don't ignore hypertension and don't think if your pressure is high, that's normal for you. That's not normal for anybody. So you want to know and understand what those goals are and how to get there. So we talk about things that contribution of lifestyle, and that's probably one of the biggest things that we'll find that impacts, especially in the African American community, is lifestyle. I don't know if you ever heard the term social determinants of health. Well, we see this a lot now. These are the conditions in which we're born, we live, we work, we play, we worship, our built neighborhoods. What is in that neighborhood that impacts your health? If you don't have access to medical care, you can't go to a doctor if you don't have access. If there's a transportation issue, if you have housing insecurity where you're spending, over 30% of your house income is going to where you live, that means do you have money for other things you need to do? Where are our priorities and how do we get there? What type of education do we have? What are our access to these types of things? This all impacts on somebody's health because again, if you go in your neighborhood, when I was driving, I had my Uber coming from the airport, I think I saw at least 7 liquor stores driving here, at least. I saw these chicken and fish, and I know it's just fried stuff. If this is the staple of your diet, that's the issue that we're going to run into because the fat, the sodium, the sugars and all these things lead to heart problems and from hypertension, diabetes. So these are the things that I know. And I know, listen, I hear you, it tastes good. Let's keep it real. A lot of this stuff tastes good. I get it. But that's what we're used to doing. But that doesn't make it's going to be good for your long-term health. There are other things out here that are equally good that you have to just try that could be much better for your short and long-term health. So I'm bringing this up to say those social determinants impact significantly on your health. Now, why is treatment important? Treatment is important for several reasons. One, early detection. If you have prostate cancer and that's addressed, more times than not, prostate cancer can be cured. If you have kidney cancer, which is something that we more stumble on than anything else, take out the tumor, a lot of times people are cured. lung cancer. If you're smoking, that's going to put you at higher risk for things like that. So, but early detection, the earlier you find things, the quicker you can have it addressed. But again, unfortunately, so in our population more specifically, we delay care. We put things off, and it could be from various reasons. It could be access, whatever. But when you look at mortality rates in African American neighborhoods, you're going to see a higher risk of that, a higher rate of that, because of lack of detection, lack of treatment. So getting these things addressed early, even when it comes down to preventive things for heart disease. If you address blood pressures early, you can oftentimes reduce your risk significantly to go on to develop heart disease. But we have to do it. So you have to first want to recognize that there's an issue there, and then secondly, you want to have it addressed. Because again, if you ignore it and you say, okay, I'm fine because I feel good. Some people tell me they only check their pressure when they have a headache. And I'm like, but that headache's probably coming from something else. It's probably not coming from the blood pressure. And so and some of that is just our avoidance, because if we avoid things, we're going to be fine. And that's not always the case. Avoidance is not going to help any of us, and it's definitely not going to help you. So you want to, A, make sure you're addressing and recognizing, and B, make sure that you get treatment if you need it. And and please don't tell me you're taking your meds when you're not. Compliance in this country is 30%, meaning that you got 100 people, only 30% of the time you're actually taking your medicine. And that's a low compliance rate. Now, I've got people who could look me right in my eye and lie like I ain't never seen before. Oh, I take my medicine every day. But I'm looking at the bottles, and I'm like, yeah, but Chief, you had this bottle filled 8 months ago. There's only 30 pills in here. How could you be taking them every day? Oh, well, I just put some pills from an old bottle. I said, well, the old bottle should have been empty too. I said, so come on, let's get to the reality. And I tell folks all the time, lying to me is not going to help, you at all. I said, if you want to really get better, you have to be honest with yourself about your issues. And listen, there's no perfect people out here. None. The only person I know is perfect lived 2,000 years ago. There's no such thing. I'm not, nobody on this panel is. And you are not. But to be able to recognize what your shortfalls are and be willing to address them, you can achieve more than you could ever even imagine. So that treatment aspect, making sure if you have cancer, get it addressed early. Don't ignore it. That's not going to help you. If you have high blood pressure, take your medicine. There are lifestyle changes that you can make in addition to medications. I tell people all the time, I'm not a big pill pusher in my practice, but I tell people, I say, what I need from you is 3 things. I need you to exercise. The American Heart says we're supposed to be exercising 30 minutes, 5 days a week. And that could be just simple walking. And like I said, if you come into church, you walk around the church. If you're at your job, get there 15 minutes early, walk around your workplace, and then walk around again at the end of the day. And that's your 30 minutes right there. And learn how to incorporate your activity in your day. You cut the sodium content down, 2,000 milligrams or less. And they really say 1,500 milligrams, but I know realistically 1,500 milligrams is like nothing. I mean, a teaspoon of salt is 2,300 milligrams of sodium, a teaspoon. So you think about all the foods you eat all day long, and people will say to me, oh, well, Doc, I don't ever add any salt to my food. I said, yeah, but you was in McDonald's yesterday. I mean, there's like a ton of sodium in there for you to get it with a salt shaker. So you have to understand the nutritional aspects of what you're getting and what that all entails. But again, if you could keep that salt content low, and then with the exercise and weight loss, you can drop your blood pressure with just lifestyle changes, somewhere between 6 and 12 points, just on lifestyle change alone. But the hard part about it is getting people to do it. And again, I know it's not easy. Changing what you've done all your life is not easy, but that's where you have to, as a family. I tell families all the time, I say, if you're a husband, you got a wife, do things together. Go out and walk together sometimes. I know some of y'all may not like your wives. I don't know. But I'm gonna go on the assumption that all you guys are Christian brothers and sisters in here, and you want to do right. So go out, take your wife out, and walk sometimes. Wives, take your husbands out, walk sometimes. You'd be surprised how much that can impact, but it has to be consistent. Patients would tell me, oh, I walk every day at work. I said, yeah, but you're starting and stopping every 5 seconds. To train your heart, you have to get it up a certain rate for a certain length of time. And if at work you're not doing it, I'm glad you're getting those steps in, but to get the heart benefits you need, you have to do it continuously. So I said to people, that's how you get that down. You want to make sure you do that. So that prevention is going to always be key. Make sure you go see your doctor. Don't avoid us. If you don't like your doctor, get another one. It's going to be now. Don't just dump them because you just don't like what they have to say. I mean, you want to make sure they're getting you the information that you need, and you want somebody you can talk to and relate to, because that impacts how we receive information, how we convey it out to you is going to be impactful. That early detection is going to be key. Get your screenings done. Make sure if you're a certain age, you want to get screened for prostate cancer, colon cancer. I know a lot of men avoid that because they're scared of the finger. But it doesn't always have to be that way. But you want to face these situations head on and make sure, because again, your life may depend on it. Make sure your exercise that we talked about. Get rid of the cigarettes, the excess alcohol, and that weed, please. Again, I tell people, I'm like the Commodores, get high on sunshine. Don't get high on weed, because again, a lot of people think that, and I understand there are reasons people do that. Dr. Neighbors may touch on that. This stress, whatever the case may be, but you want to make sure that you're doing your part to be as healthy as you can. Take your medications like you're supposed to. If you're diabetic, make sure you understand what your hemoglobin A1C levels are. If you're hypertension, make sure you check your own blood pressures at home. These are the things to me you want to make sure you're doing. If you have a high cholesterol, don't ignore that, because that's not going to do you any good either. So in the end, in finality, why is all this vital? Because I want to see you live. I want to see you have a good life and a healthy life. And to do that means you have to do some things that you may not always want to do, but that you should do. And if you look at other countries, they have a higher life expectancy than we have in the States. And that's because, a lot of times, because of lifestyle. So I'm saying all this wholeheartedly. I joke around when we do these things, because you got to laugh sometimes in this job, because that's part of what creates relationships. But, the seriousness of it is I see people die more than I want to see them. And I hate when my older brother's is a physician too, and sometimes we'll talk, just having our conversations about the day. And he made a comment to me. He had a patient that just told him he was 61, African American brother, and just good guy. And I know him too, as I knew him from he's not a patient of mine, he doesn't have heart issues. But he made a comment to my brother, said, listen, I'm just glad to see 61, because none of my family lived past that. 61? This is the kind of thing that I am. And he was grateful that he lived to be 61. He was just turned 61, I think, the week before, my brother told me. And this, when you look at life expectancies of groups, it's not so much genetic, it's lifestyle more than it is genetics. So I bring all this up to say that, take charge of your own health. Do the right thing. Go out there, make sure you get your screenings done. Talk to your family members. Make sure they're doing it. One of the biggest challenges I have, and this will be my final comment, the biggest challenges I have is when you deal with families. I have folks that would get upset. The grandma comes to the hospital, they get, they have bad heart or whatever the case may be. And we'll get some family members fussing at us, saying we're not doing enough in their mind. And the first question I ask a lot of them, I say, well, I've been taking care of your grandma for about 15 years. Who are you? And where have you been? I have not seen you at any of her appointments. You hadn't called to find out what could I do to help grandma live a better life. Nothing. But yet you come in here and fussing because you feel like, well, should I fuss at you about what you have not been doing? Because again, health is not just a doctor thing. It's a patient thing, it's a doctor thing, and it's a family thing. And everybody has a role to play, in terms of promoting that good health. And you all know, listen, I got tons of trifling family members, that don't do anything, but they call me every 5 seconds when something's going wrong. And we all have them, but trying to teach people, but trying to get them engaged in good health, to understand why things are happening the way they are and how they can prevent it. That to me is the challenge that we have, but that's where our focus should be. So look at your, I'm not gonna say y'all have trifling family members, I'm talking about my own. I got tons of them, and they're always calling for something, but that's just family. I love them to death, but they trifling. But that's okay, I can work with them, but I say all that to say that, the whole point of all this is how do I help you live that best life? Thank you.
My name is Woody, and I like to stand when I'm speaking. I like to move around when I'm speaking. Obviously, I talk very loudly when I'm talking. But all of these things are because I get excited. Some people ask me, Woody, why are you so intense? And I say, I'm not intense. I'm just excited. So I'm excited to be here today and talk to you about some of the research I've done on black men's health. So my name is Woody. Happy to be here. Woody Neighbors, actually. By the way, I actually had a Pinto. I had a flashback as soon as you. Yeah. I had that baby blue Pinto, and that Pinto took me everywhere. I also am the member of the team with the most gray hair. So I'm speaking to you as someone who has been on the planet now for 71 years. And I want to stay alive. Newby mentioned that. That is my goal. I want to stay alive. I know I'm going to get in and get out, try to do my presentation fairly quickly. I do have some slides to help me stay on track. One of the problems I have is I got so many stories I can tell you, and I have a tendency to go off track. There's a very lovely young lady sitting in the crowd who's smiling right now. And that's my wife, the other Dr. Neighbors. And I always love it when she comes with me to my presentations because when I'm way off track, I look at her and she's giving me, those husband-wife looks. They're like, uh-oh, I'm feeling the vibe. So I'm going to keep my eye on her so I can stay on track. But I do have a few slides. I hope I can whip through those for you. So just to get started with my presentation, you can see on the screen that my name is unimportant. You don't have to remember my name, but what I do want you to remember is just this one word, male. If you don't remember anything else I say today, just remember male, because male stands for men are leaving early. It's just that simple. Now, the other thing I want you to remember is that number 7.5. So male and 7.5. Because 7.5, that's the number of years that black women are going to outlive black men. 7.5. Male, 7.5. So I can stop now and sit down because that's all you really need to know. Because Dr. Newby covered, everything. Next slide, please. So I already told you I'm 71. I've been doing research. Sometimes I like to say, they do call me Dr. Neighbors, but I say, yeah, but I never went to med school. And what I mean by that is I have a PhD and I do research. Dr. Newby and Dr. Levy, they have MDs, and they're the ones responsible for taking care of you. But my job is to try to figure out what is going on with black men. So I've been doing research on black men for the last 15 years. I've been doing personal research on one black man for at least the last 31 years. Every morning I get up and look in the mirror and I say, what are you doing? And what I mean by that is, are you going to behave yourself today or are you going to misbehave? And I've got some chronic diseases that are chasing me. Now, I want to stay alive, but I've got hypertension, I got type 2 diabetes, I got chronic kidney disease. They're all trying to do their thing to take me out. So it's my job to push back, to fight back. Somebody mentioned intrinsic motivation a second ago. It is so much about behavior, lifestyle, and really trying to do the right thing. So today I'm coming to you with good news and bad news. So I'm going to give you the bad news first. Next slide. So this is one way to make that number 7.5 come alive. And I'm not going to go through the whole picture, but you can definitely see the row that focuses on us, Black Americans. The male figure and the female figure are not on top of each other. They are spread out. And all that means is women are living longer than we are. Next slide. Here's another way to look at it. This picture shows us that the gap between male life expectancy and female life expectancy has been too wide for too long. So my point to you is that this difference is not only unnecessary, but it's unacceptable. We men can no longer stand for this. We've got to do something to change what we're doing, because we do want to stay alive, and in fact, we want to live as long as we possibly can. Next slide. So we all know men, black men, live sicker, die younger. What are we going to do about it? My point to you is that we need to talk about it. And that's why when Collin came up with this idea, brother, let's talk, I said, sign me up. Because all my research shows that this is one of the most important things that we can do. Next slide. So I've done a lot of research studies, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but I am going to talk about the one that was done primarily here in Detroit called Man Up, Man Down. I'll say a little bit about mental health and depression. And by the way, my good friend Dr. Lonnie Joe is sitting back there. And if you really want to know, a lot more about men and depression, I had the good fortune to do an interview with him. He interviewed me, and we talked a lot about depression. And that video is still up on YouTube. So I'm going to hit the highlights of that today. We did the Man Up, Man Down study here in Detroit. We also did some work in Flint on diabetes. And then I'll have a little bit to say about my personal struggles with diabetes, kidney disease, and depression due to grief. Let me say a little bit about where we got the Man Up, Man Down title from. My research program has always been called Man Up, Man Down. And we came to that name because I noticed that when I was together with the black men that I hang out with, first of all, we never talked about any problems we had. In fact, I don't think anybody ever had a problem. It's like Dr. Newby said, how you doing? I'm good, I'm fine, you know. But if anyone mustered up the courage to talk about a challenge they were dealing with, that conversation was very short. You know, you would say, well, you know, I'm dealing with something, and inevitably somebody would say, well, I don't know, you just need to man up. And I kept hearing this man up thing, and then one day it hit me. That's bad advice. That is really bad advice. We need to stop saying that to each other, because what you're really saying is, I don't think I can help you. You need to go somewhere, man up, and handle your business. And that is the wrong advice. So what we started saying is, you can man up some of the time, but you can't man up all the time to every challenge life is going to throw your way. Sometimes the manning up results in a man going down. And our Man Up, Man Down study was a study of depression among black men. And so, you know, sometimes we say, hey, I'm feeling down. That means I'm feeling depressed. So that's where Man Up, Man Down comes from. But guess what? what we also learned by doing this research is that if men get together and talk to each other, I mean, imagine that, we would actually talk to each other about what's really going on with us, and like Dr. Newby said, tell the truth. We say, take off the mask, just take off the mask. You can be the man up again. You can go down, you can be man down, but you can be man up again if you are smart enough and brave enough to reach out to somebody for help and assistance. So that's my message. That's my message today. Brothers, we need to talk to each other. We need to tell the truth. Take off the mask. Next slide. So the Man Up, Man Down study, you can see it was a study primarily in Detroit, but we went to other cities as well. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what we learned from doing a whole bunch of focus groups. And all we mean by focus group is that we would just get in a room with about 6, 7, 8 men, and we would talk to each other about whatever was going on, including our mental health. Next slide. So when we asked all the black men that we were talking to, what is a real man? This doesn't surprise you at all, right? I mean, this is the kind of information we got. A real man works hard, he's tough, he won't back down, he doesn't complain, he handles his business, he needs no help. That's not a real man. He mans up to every challenge. And so I thought, wow, this reminds me of the story of John Henry, the steel driving man. We all know about John Henry, and I will confess, for the vast majority of my life, John Henry was my hero. Until I thought about the story, and while John Henry won that contest with the steam drill, he went over, lay down beneath a tree, and he died at that moment. John Henry, male, he left way too early. Now, I'm not against hard work. I work hard every day of my life, but we can work too hard. And one of the points I want to leave you with is that if we're spending too much time working and ignoring our health, then we're going to leave early. We can't afford to do that. Next slide. So in the Man Up, Man Down study, after we heard all about what a real man does, we started asking them about emotions, feelings, and eventually depression. And we were kind of surprised that the number one symptom that the black men we talked to wanted to hear about was loneliness. And at first we were just shocked by that. Man, that's paradoxical, because they just got through telling us, hey, I don't need anybody. I do my thing. I man up. I step up. I'm a rock. And then turn around and like, yeah, but, loneliness. And so anyway, long story short, what we discovered is that once we men get comfortable and really starting, to let down, there are all kinds of things that we will talk about. We just need to find that comfortable space. We will even talk about mental health, which, as you know, in the black community has always traditionally carried a huge amount of stigma. But here we were now in a room with a group of black men, and they wanted to know about loneliness. And so we talked a lot about that. And basically the point of this slide is that one of the problems we black men have is that we work ourselves into a corner of social isolation precisely at those times when we need the help of others the most. And I'm raising my hand. I'm guilty, guilty, guilty. I could see myself in the data I was collecting, because when I'm really troubled, again, don't take my word for it. You can ask my wife. She knows when I'm going through some stuff, because I don't want to talk to her. I don't want to talk to anybody. I can be in a room full of people, but I'm still alone. I mean, I'm just in that man cave, I guess. And I had to learn over the years not to do that. And that's basically what our research shows. We just need to stop isolating ourselves precisely when we need help the most. Next slide. But again, don't take my word for it. I'm just this person standing up here talking. But the Surgeon General has recognized this. He's actually calling it an epidemic. And in fact, he's saying this is a problem for men of all races and ethnicities. But it's definitely, my work shows it's definitely a problem for us. So, just let's stamp out loneliness by communicating with each other about what's really going on. Next slide. So I'm going to move pretty quickly through the next few slides. I just wanted to give you a little flavor of what we learned from our Man Up, Man Down study, which we did here in Detroit. I told you that I was going to give you some good news, so I'm finished with the bad news. Here's one of the best pieces of news we got from our study, is that as the guys opened up more and more, they said, hey, actually, we were wrong. A real man can get help. Being a real man doesn't keep you from getting help because you're honest with yourself. And that's when we started saying, yeah, we just really have to tell the truth. Next slide. So as we continue to talk to the men, basically they came up with the idea of we need to do this. We need to get together and talk to each other. We were doing a research study. So at the end of our focus group, they would say, oh, this was great. I feel so much better about everything. When's our next meeting? We'd have to say, there is no next meeting. This is a research study, and we just wanted you to come here today, help us collect some data, and then we'll try to figure it out. But every group we ran in Detroit, at the end of it, they said, when's the next meeting? Next slide. So we said, we need to have more meetings. I mean, doesn't take a rocket science to figure that out. So we turned our focus group meetings into what we called the man-to-man, no-nonsense health dialogues, and I'm very happy one of my colleagues is here today, Jimani Lee, helped me with this work. Jimani and I went everywhere in Detroit. In fact, Jimani's in one of these pictures. I don't know if you can see him, but these are just some pictures I like to look at because it shows, some of the meetings we had when we started putting together the man-to-man, no-nonsense health dialogues. And we did that at the University of Michigan, Detroit Center, UD Mercy. So we were all over the place. Ford Field, we would go there. Next slide. And so what we did, we took this idea of no-nonsense, man-to-man dialogues, and we incorporated it into our next research project. Now this project happened to be done at Flint, and we called it Man Up to Diabetes. And so here's just a picture of some of the research staff. But the bottom line is that we recruited 50 black men, 55 and over, to our Man Up to Diabetes study. And over the course of 6 months, we significantly lowered their blood sugar on average. The blood sugar went down. And all we did was get the men together once a week for 8 weeks to talk about how we're going to deal with diabetes. Now, I have diabetes. I've had type 2 for as long as I can remember. I think I was in my 40s. My mother had diabetes. My aunt had diabetes. And then later on I learned that my dad had diabetes. So some of you might say, oh, well, you got diabetes because you're genetically predisposed. And I would say, not exactly, because I was doing some things in terms of my lifestyle that were facilitating me having high blood sugar. So I'm here to promote good behavior, healthy behavior, not blaming everything else on family history. So, see you later. We can lower blood sugar. We can lower blood pressure. And in my case, I can actually improve upon my kidney biomarkers, something called EGFR. I'm not going to talk about that now, but be happy to answer any questions you have once I'm finished talking. So next slide, please. So the good news, if you're feeling well, you got to listen very carefully to what Collin Mays is going to tell you next. If you have a diagnosis and you have been told you're dealing with some diseases like I am, then you better follow your doctor's orders. Listen to what Dr. Newby is saying, listen to what Dr. Levy is saying, and do that. Do those things. But guess what? Dr. Newby and Dr. Levy are not going to be able to move in with you and spend every day. I mean, this is basically what John is saying. You know, we got a whole bunch of days we're on our own. And that's why I look in the mirror every morning and say, Woody, are you going to do the right thing? Are you going to stay away from those nachos? Are you going to stay away from those salty snacks? You know, the Doritos and all this? Are you going to leave that stuff alone? Or are you going to let your automobile take you through McDonald's and act like you've got a self-driving car and cause you to order some French fries? Are you going to do that, or are you not going to do that? So at the end of the day, we have to make the right decisions so that when we do go see the doctor, and the doctor is showing us our biomarkers, those biomarkers hopefully are going to get better and better because we're behaving ourselves. If you're feeling ill, and by that I mean, you know, you're just not feeling quite yourself, things are not right, maybe you have some symptoms, all I'm saying to you is tell somebody. Don't keep it to yourself. Just talk to one person. When they do ask you how you're doing, don't just automatically say, oh, everything is good. If it's not, have that conversation. Next slide. So let me close by saying, don't remember my name. Don't remember anything I've said except male, because men are leaving early. That's unacceptable, and it's totally unnecessary. And so I want to thank you for your time today. Thank you very much.
Thanks, both Dr. Newby and neighbors. Very powerful. September 9th, 2015. I'll never forget the day. I went to the doctor for the first time in 2 years, and I weighed 419 pounds. And I was depressed, I was angry, and I was scared. About a week later, I wrote down my dreams and aspirations for the next 10 to 15 years. And I realized that everything I wrote down would require me to do some significant movement. It would require me to travel, to venture out and do new things that I haven't done before. It would require me to be a lot more social. I was pretty shy growing up. That might be impossible for some people that know me now to believe, but didn't have a lot of confidence. But in writing down those goals, I realized that I didn't know many people over 400 pounds that were over the age of 50. I didn't know many that were over the age of 40. Writing down the list of my goals and aspirations really changed my life. So I went on a quest for the next 3.5 years to rebalance my life, I'd say. And in a 3.5 year span, I lost a total of 220 pounds. I didn't have any surgery, didn't take any pills, woke up every day and exercised. The elliptical was the best method for me. Spent 45 minutes on that at a pretty rapid pace. Would drink about 1.5 gallons of water a day. Never drank alcohol to begin with, so I didn't miss it. But I did miss pop. Still do to this day. But I bypass it. There are some things that maybe we never give up. For me, that would be carrot cake. Reese's peanut butter cup. But we learn that through behavior, the importance of moderation, the importance of accountability, and the importance of living. I've gone through 4 traumatic, very traumatic life episodes in my duration of being here on this earth. And I'm currently in the middle of one right now. And in those episodes, it's so easy to revert back to what brought me comfort, which was food. Food when I'm happy, food when I'm sad, food when I'm lonely. Talk about loneliness. Food when I have somebody sitting right next to me. I think oftentimes in our culture, we're quick to eat, even if there's nothing else to do. So when I feel a sense of sadness or anger or depression, instead of eating, I get active. So if I'm not using the elliptical, I'm going to ride the bike. If I'm not using the bike, I'll go out for a run. I make it a point to go to the doctor every year to get screened. Again, we have health screenings here today. Hope everybody does get screened. But I really took away from the old me the importance of rebalancing and the importance of living. Black men over the age of 50 should be getting screened, should be going to the doctor once a quarter, 4 times a year. But the biggest challenge that we as black men face beyond obesity, beyond cancer, beyond hypertension, is stress. How many have experienced a bad job? How many have experienced a bad relationship? How many have experienced the loss of someone that you love? These are all things that traumatize anyone, especially black men. The weight of the world is on our shoulders. I so appreciate the commentary from Dr. Newby addressing the importance of cardiovascular health and understanding family genetics. My own family genetics. My grandfather passed at the age of 55 of a heart attack. He was in amazing shape, former boxer, an engineer, a man's man, as you would probably call him, and passed at a young age of 55 from an undetected heart disease. One of those traumatic episodes that I was telling you about most recently, last month, my dad passed from a undetected heart concern. Similar to my grandfather, my dad was in amazing shape, much better than I was majority of my life. It's important to understand the family history and to really go to your doctor with your questions and your concerns. Don't let them find it. You go to them. When we talk about the importance of talking and having a support system, which I appreciate Dr. Neighbors saying, it's important for black men to have someone to lean on, have someone to talk to. How are you doing today? What challenges are you facing? Let's work through them. Your village matters. And that's why we're here today for Brother Let's Talk. Thank you for coming.